Hi, everyone.
Hey guys, what's up? Um, it's been a while. This is oh my gosh. This is well, actually we did do one piece of bonus content. But we are really excited. Sorry about that. My ring light just went on. Um, we're really excited cuz we've got a treat for you guys today. Um, we're we're debuting a brand new format for our deep dives, and we are talking all about Van today. Um, and let me give you a little preview of what our new format looks like for our deep dives. So, yeah, we're doing the iceberg. It looks a little messy. It looks like it's going to be 4 hours long, but trust me, we'll get through it together. And it won't be 4 hours long, I promise. Well, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Can't stay all night, all right?
Yeah, I have a heart out, so it won't be 4 hours long.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm so excited about this. I mean, like I always love doing these deep dives, and it's kind of been like my favorite thing to do. And this kind of helps to keep us like to really keep all of our thoughts together and keep us on track, and um, you know, just helps us stay focused, and I'm really excited about it. And it's really like I'm so excited that we're starting with Van because she's such a fascinating character, and she's such a controversial character. Um, which is funny because after season 1, I think if you described Van as controversial, I think people would have been like, "What?
Yeah.
Van? Controversial? Huh?" Um, but yeah, she's become very controversial, which to me is a little strange. Um, I don't know. I don't understand it. Like, a lot of people are talking about her being the big bad, and which to me is just so it's really odd. What do you think about all that talk, Pamela?
Um, well, I mean, honestly, I think we should just get into the iceberg, Kelly. I think we should
Mhm.
get into the iceberg and then we can save that because I think it comes into play when we have the discussion about archetypes.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, first let me just explain the Hemingway's iceberg theory first of all. I know you guys have probably all seen iceberg videos before, or the iceberg, have heard about the iceberg theory. So basically, there's typically 3 levels. This is something that Hemingway came up with, and for storytelling, there's the surface level. It's the visible part of the story that readers directly experience. It includes the actions, dialogue, and events that occur on the surface. However, Hemingway intentionally leaves out certain details, allowing readers to fill in the gaps with their own interpretations and emotions. This creates a sense of mystery and engages readers in a more active way. Then the next layer is the subtext. Beneath the surface level lies the subtext, which refers to the underlying emotions, motivations, and conflicts of the characters. Hemingway believed that these deeper elements should be hinted at rather than explicitly stated. By using subtle cues and gestures, he allows readers to infer the character's true feelings and intentions. This adds depth and complexity to the story, making it more relatable and thought provoking. And then finally, at the bottom, there's theme and symbolism. The deepest level of Hemingway's iceberg theory involves the themes and symbolism embedded within the story. Hemingway often used symbols and motifs to convey larger ideas and universal truths. These symbols can be objects, actions, or even settings that carry symbolic meaning beyond their literal representation. By using symbolism, Hemingway invites readers to explore deeper themes and draw their own conclusions about the human condition. And obviously, this is always the most important, like the most interesting part of storytelling. And you know, clearly Yellowjackets has a ton of that. I mean, it's there's a whole symbol attached to Yellowjackets that people can't stop talking about. Um, Now we obviously as we showed you, we made an entire Van Palmer iceberg. Now, we started basically the top level. We've got 4 levels here. The top level are basically the facts, and then for the middle level, which I kind of divided into 2 parts, it's more like more obvious subtext and then kind of less obvious subtext, what I thought of as less obvious subtext. Um, and then at the bottom were kind of theories. So let's kind of go through them one by one. Um, so let's start with the top layer of the iceberg, which is the facts. Now, the big one, she is the goalie of the team. So I found this great post on Reddit, and Pamela has it in front of her, so she can. Pamela, why don't you let us know where it's from and read through it because it's a great post explaining like Van being the goalie and what that
Yeah,
signifies.
so this was posted by Present Advantage 106, who said, theory one, all goalkeepers are a little crazy. If you're in the world of sports, you might have heard this saying before, and it's worth noting that it holds a lot of truth. As the last line of defense, the goalkeeper is both the most unique role on the team and the ultimate sacrificial lamb. Their body serves as the point of interception. They put themselves in harm's way, not for the win of the team, as this is achieved by forwards and midfielders, but to save it by eliminating risk. But most importantly, a good goalkeeper needs to be able to make quick, difficult decisions and provide solid reasoning for making them. Very interesting. Van continuously serves as the team's goalkeeper on and off the field before and after the crash. A few examples of this are the bonfire before nationals. It's a hostile environment. Van starts by watching back and forth, playing mediator to calm everyone down. But when Shauna starts encroaching into Thaisa's personal space, Van is the first to place herself in the middle and push back. You can argue that her feelings for Ty encourage Van's willingness to defend her, but look at how quickly she moved in to place herself in a vulnerable position. It's a split-second decision of intervention, and she physically pushes Shauna back far enough to make space. Is it an overreaction? Why doesn't anyone else intervene? Van doesn't care, nor does she afford them the chance. It's an act of instinct. Let's see. Wow, lot more examples. Do you want me to keep reading them, Kelly?
Um, you can. I mean, that's a great one that stands out. If you see anything else that stands out, you can certainly read it. But we will post this. We will post a link to this in the show notes so everyone can see it. But it's a really great post. I highly suggest everyone go read it.
There is a little bit more I'd like to read. I said
Yeah.
after I'm like, should I keep going? Okay. Episode 8, season 1. After the wolf attack, Van is bleeding out. Ty is trying to bring her back to the cabin, but Van tells Ty to leave her behind to let the other girls go, and not because she's a lost cause. She tells Ty because it isn't safe. It's acceptable. It's acceptance of self-sacrifice, yet it isn't martyrdom. It's the team before me, the quintessential goalie perspective. The next point they bring up is survival mode and adaptation of the goalkeeper. In season 2, Van's character sees the most obvious shift. We know she survived a million things that killed her, and she's starving. Important to note, a starving person's brain starts to gear towards default setting. Instincts grow stronger. The ability to perform logical reasoning starts to dissolve and will try to clutch onto reasons to want to survive. Instead of accepting imminent death like Jackie, she finds comfort in this mythology Lottie's created. It's not just because she wants to find hope in the chance of rescue. Van even tells Thaisa she's facing the struggle for a purpose. They're snowed in and she feels effectively useless because there's nothing to defend against, and the lines are beginning to blur. Really, really very well written, very, very thoughtful. I'm so glad you found this, Kelly.
Yeah, I thought it was a brilliant post. But Yeah. So it's, I've always felt like the fact, I mean, I think that the fact that they're in a soccer team, first of all, I know that the fact that they're a soccer team was heavily influenced by the story of behind the soccer team that was stranded. Uh, the soccer team that the movie Alive is based off of, the soccer team that was stranded in the Andes.
Hmm.
Um, but I also know that, but I've also always thought that like there was something about. First of all, I know Yellowjackets. They chose Yellowjackets specifically because of what Yellowjackets represent. Um, but I've always thought that there was something specifically about the team, either like their numbers or something about the sport of soccer itself that represented something having to do with the story. So I was really glad when I stumbled across that. That made me happy. So yeah, that will be in the link to that post will be in our show notes. So dates girls, obviously dating Thaisa.
Hmm.
Um, and she has a bad relationship with her mom. That's clear. She
Yeah,
mentioned that in
we see that in the pilot with her
yeah,
slapping her mother in the face
yeah,
and jingling the keys in front of her.
yes. And and she mentions her mom in season 2.
Hmm.
Um, and clearly it sounds like they eventually patched things up, but she made it clear that they did not get along for most of their
Yeah.
life. She carries hard liquor in her truck.
Yes, and this is the adult. You've moved into the adult van timeline. Yeah, we know she carries hard liquor in her truck. She also is not paying her bills
Not paying her
because
bills.
she's planning on dying.
Yep. She has terminal cancer.
Hmm.
Or does she? We'll talk about that later. She was not involved in the plot to freeze out Allie.
Yes, not at all involved. Which all that goalie theory is very interesting. You know, combined with like reading that post and then thinking about that fight where it's like, I mean, like I would think that part of her could be upset that Thaisa made this plan and didn't include her.
Yeah. I never
But
thought
she's
about that.
not. She still chooses to intervene and step in between Shauna, which like Shauna was being like very aggressive. Like, we might want to stay on that girl's way.
Right? Um, so yeah, she was not involved in freezing out Allie. So her mom is now dead.
Hmm.
Um, she owns a video store
Hmm.
and
While we were
digitizes,
streaming.
yeah, while you were streaming. Which is such a great name.
So
I love it so
good.
much. And she digitizes people's wedding tapes, which I mean, probably probably makes up like, half or more than half of her income. Um, she lives in Ohio, which I'd still love to know how she ended up there. Um,
Why is
yeah.
really the question.
She's a cinephile.
Yeah. She loves definitely both movies and TV. I mean, we see that obviously in her career choice, but also she's like the chosen storyteller in the wilderness. It's so funny because I feel like I would be the same way if I was stranded in the wilderness. I'd be like, I too would be the jokester. Like when they do the seance, Van is like the first one to like crack jokes and be like, let's ask if like this teacher is hooking up with this teacher and stuff
Oh
like
yeah,
that. Like
same.
I would be the first one to do that. I would also be retelling TV shows and movies and books just
Oh
as
yeah.
like campfire fodder. Like
Yeah,
I just think
totally.
that's so funny. There was like one throwaway line by like Aquila, I want to say, in season 2, when they ask Van to tell a story, and she starts to tell an original story, and then Lottie cuts in, and it just completely goes away. But Aquila's like, "Why don't you tell us the story of like this movie again?" And it's like so funny. Like,
Yeah.
love that for her.
Yeah, same, same. I would probably have us all reenact Clue, like, every single night, and I would have everybody mad at me because I would always insist on being Mrs. White.
Yeah, I would definitely like be doing Clueless. I can recite the Amy Dunn Cool Girl monologue, even though that was not out at the time of The Wilderness. But even still, I I would just be retelling like anything in this little brain. I'd be like, you want to hear all 4 seasons of Mindy 4, because that's where I'm on. 4 seasons of Mindy Project, like I will get you through it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's so
Um,
funny.
uh,
So we
let's
also know that she and Thaisa were at Shauna's wedding together. And I say together very loosely because we don't
yeah,
know that they were like a couple together, but they were at least on amiable terms, that they arrived and talked to each other. And we know they planted that, they replaced Shauna's signature book, the pen, with a a
it's a
pen where
girly
the
pen.
woman comes topless. So
Right, which is why Thaisa wanted that pen from the truck driver because
yes.
it was nostalgic for her and Van because it reminded
Yeah.
her of when they did that at Shauna's wedding.
And if there's anything we know about adult Van, it is that she loves nostalgia.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Um,
Should we
and,
move a little deeper down into the iceberg?
yes,
We're hopping in the
let's
submarine now.
yes, let's go. We're Jack is starting to sink down a little bit.
Jack is getting a little his head under the water now.
Let's first of all talk about I think we should first of all talk about her archetype.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
Because I think that has a lot to do with the wavering between compassion and coldness. Um, so she is quite obviously the trickster archetype. Um, and I've always been fascinated by the archetypes. Um,
Do you want to just tell everyone a little bit about the Jungian archetypes, Kelly?
yeah, well, I'll talk about the trickster archetype a little bit. Um, and for those who are curious, I mean, Thaisa is definitely the explorer archetype without a doubt. Um, as for the trickster, okay, so obviously Van is the trickster archetype. I think most people probably who know anything about archetypes have that figured out. The trickster, the jester, whichever word you want to use. Um, but I put a little fox there in the corner because, or not fox, I'm sorry, coyote, because that's the coyote is the animal that kind of is associated with that archetype. Um, so these are just a few characters that are, known tricksters. Um, sorry, I'm just going through here. So, we've got Loki in Norse mythology, Anansi in African folklore, Chester Cat in Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. The trickster archetype adds a layer of complexity and depth to narratives that's both apparent and underlying. What happened? Sorry. Okay. Um, so from the apparent perspective, the trickster is a source of entertainment and amusement. Their antics, pranks, and clever tricks provide comic relief and lighten the atmosphere in stories that might otherwise be too serious or heavy. Their presence injects a sense of playfulness, inviting readers or audiences to let go of their inhibitions and embrace the joy of the unexpected. The lightheartedness can create a bond between the storyteller and the audience as we all delight in the unpredictable nature of the trickster's actions. However, it's the underlying significance of the trickster archetype that truly captivates a lot of people. So, behind the mischievous facade, tricksters often symbolize chaos, disruption, and the breaking of societal norms. They challenge the status quo, question authority, and expose the flaws and limitations of established systems. In doing so, they become catalysts for change, pushing characters and societies to evolve and grow. The trickster is not bound by conventional morality or societal expectations. They embody the concept of duality, blurring the line between good and evil, right and wrong. This inherent ambiguity allows them to serve as a mirror for our own human nature, challenging us to question our own beliefs and values. They remind us that life is not always black and white, but rather a tapestry of shades of gray. Moreover, the trickster archetype serves as a transformative force in storytelling. Through their disruptive actions, they force characters to confront their fears, step outside their comfort zones, and embrace their own potential for change. The trickster's presence can be a catalyst for character development and personal growth, leading to profound transformation and enlightenment. Sorry, I got a little behind there. The trickster archetype holds immense significance in storytelling, both apparent and underlying, in their role as a source of entertainment and comic relief to their deeper symbolism. To their deeper symbolism of chaos and transformation, the trickster challenges us to embrace the unexpected and question the established order. They remind us that life is not always as it seems, and sometimes it takes a mischievous trickster to shake things up and reveal the hidden truths within ourselves and the world around us. So that's a little bit about the trickster, and I thought it was really interesting. It's a lot of people have been kind of trying to paint Van lately as this big bad, as like the new big bad. And I just think she's become a lot more interesting.
Yeah. So when we were talking earlier about the theories, okay, I have a lot of thoughts about the trickster archetype for Van. I actually think if Yellowjackets had one person who was the trickster, I do not think it would be, I don't think it's Van. I actually think it's Misty. If you go through like person who starts chaos, like Van, I mean, season 2, she throws the keys. That started chaos. But I think for every one maybe slight thing that has caused a slight disruption, Misty has done like 5 different things. And going back to that description of where it's like it's a lighthearted character that brings like comedy, I think like if we read that description and looked at not like necessarily like that character is telling jokes, but how the writers write that character, I think that Misty falls into it a lot easier. However, like I still think there's a lot of room. I'm not familiar with all the Jungian archetypes. I also think the trickster lends itself to being a little bit more of like, I am separate from the pack. And Van currently does not have, she is very much like a follower. So that's where I'm kind of like, I feel like if there was one, it actually might be Misty, but I'm kind of waiting to see how season 3 unfolds because I mean, we'll get into this a little bit deeper down on the iceberg, but I think that there is a lot of time for Van to really move into this role with what's going to happen now that the cabin is gone.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you say that. And I've also thought about Misty as a possible fit for the trickster archetype too. Um, but it's interesting what you've said about about Van being on the outside, because Liv Hewson actually did an interview where they kind of described Van as, even though Van is a follower and you don't necessarily see Van as somebody being on the outside. Liv Hewson described Van as being somebody who is sort of almost kind of like Misty in the sense that, like, they don't naturally fit in, and they basically just, like, they basically have to, almost like they have to really work for it, you know?
Yeah.
They're kind of naturally on the outside.
I also think
Um,
it partially has to do with being like a closeted lesbian in high school
yeah.
in 1996 too. Is like she's like working to fit in, she's hiding who she really is, no doubt from her mother, but also, her teammates and her close friends.
Yeah. And, and a more butch lesbian too on top of that as well. Um, because, it's, I mean, that's not as it's not, it's not just about her liking girls. Obviously, that's going to come with its own set of challenges. But even
Mhm.
without her coming out, I mean, it's not necessarily, regardless of whether or not people suspect that she's gay, or um I, back then or even today, it's not necessarily that socially acceptable for her to present that way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's it's she's even, I mean, her being funny helps,
Yes. Yes.
but still, it's there's a lot going on there underneath the surface. And
100%.
yeah, so let me
Do you
just
wanna jump back in about our
where did I
conversation about compassion and coldness, Kelly?
yes.
I
Let's
so yes,
let's
thank you
just
for
look at
pointing.
this photo here.
Mhm. So, for folks
Such a
who
great photo.
such a great photo. For folks who are listening, the picture we just pulled up is from season 2, when Javi's dead body is being pulled up from the ice. We get this really, like, chilling, honestly, one shot of Van, just looking down at him with, I mean, the most vacant, like, unwavering look. Um, that's the picture we have pulled up. There were so many examples, especially, I would say, like, in the last 3 episodes of season 2. When Javi is getting carved up, like, butchered, I guess, for lack of
Yeah.
better words. A lot, like, everyone else is turning away. Shauna, like, can't even do it with her eyes open, but Van is watching. I saw someone on Reddit describe how she was looking at him as, um, not seeing it as a bad thing, which, I mean, she literally does say to Javi, or excuse me, she does say, just lost my train of thought. It's gone. Um, she does make a comment where she's like, I'm not sad I'm eating him, essentially in the cabin afterward. But the person on Reddit basically said she's looking at Javi as food.
And
Which,
she
I mean,
also,
very well could be. They're literally starving. So
yeah, she also makes the comment to Travis, um, "Let your brother save you. You owe him at least
yes.
that."
Thank you.
So it's
That's what I was trying to recall.
yeah. So it's like she's, she's also looking at it like, this is respectful. Your brother died. Like, don't let him die in vain. Like, honor his death. Like, we need to survive. Don't let his death go to waste. Like, this is what he would want. Um, she's delivering it in a very cold manner. Like, when I watched it, I was like, she is absolutely 100% right. But damn, she could work on the delivery.
Yes. Yeah, it's done in like a very, very cold way.
Yeah.
She has a lot of moments like that. And I mean, this is not exactly as prime of an example, but I keep going back to her slapping her mother across the face and waving the keys. Um, it's not that I don't think the mother didn't deserve it or like you shouldn't treat your mother like that. It's not really any of that, but it's just like treating your caregiver with such disrespect. Like, I mean, slapping someone with disrespect in order to get them to essentially like wake up and get where they're going. It like when I think of compassion and coldness as a combo, that is just the first thing that pops in my head. Because that moment in the pilot has always stood out to me. And I'm just waiting for them to return to Van's relationship with her mom.
You
Hopefully,
know, you know what? I am so sorry to backtrack on this, but I just wanted to I just wanted to comment on something that I just now thought of. So there is something, and when when we first recapped at this episode. So like when I first watched it,
Mhm.
there was a scene I was so bothered by. And I was like, I have a major bone to pick with Van about her complete carelessness. And it's so funny because it totally goes back to I'm like totally backtracking here and getting like
What
going back to the
episode,
goalie
Kelly?
thing. But it totally makes sense with the goalie theory now. It's when I think it was Travis. He was sitting there with the gun and he I think it was Travis was sitting there with the gun and he was like looking at it and she comes running up to him and like it like pushes the gun down and like because she thought he was, handling it irresponsibly or whatever. And
Oh,
I
didn't
was like,
he point it at the girl? It might have been when they were trying to see who should hunt, and doesn't he point it at the girls?
no, it was before that. I think it was before they even trained. And she was
Okay.
like, "What are you doing? You don't know how to use that thing." Like,
Mm.
And and I was like, "Oh my god, what is she doing? She could get her face blown off." And because she just like came running up on him and she's just like she just pushes the barrel down. And I was like, "Oh my god, what is she doing?" And it's so funny because like that just I don't know why I just thought of that suddenly and that just goes along with the whole goalie thing, just sacrificing herself. Sorry, I just got totally off track. But
No, all good. I think there's so many more moments like that, and I'm not a very sporty person, so
yeah.
can't really tell you jack about how goalies act.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to hear it. Yeah, I feel like season two, going back, yeah, we saw a lot of. Obviously, she treats Ty with so much compassion and so much love, but I think
Yeah.
there's absolutely a flip side, and we see that the more and more they're driven by their starvation. Um,
So
yeah.
much.
I also think another trope that trope or archetype that Van 100% falls into would be final girl,
Yeah.
honestly. And I know final girls, one, usually apply to horror movie characters. And when we see those tropes, it is usually female character going through serial killer on murderous rampage, and they are the last one living. Obviously, this is a TV show, so I picked that trope because it's very well known, and I think
I
in
think I forgot to
movies
put that on the iceberg.
you wrote unkillable, and I feel like
Oh,
Final
okay.
Girl is kind of very adjacent that, very like
Yeah.
Sydney Prescott is unkillable. Even though, she gets a boo-boo on her arm and all of her friends are dead,
Yeah.
So I think this trope is really interesting if this is kind of what the writers are playing with, because how we usually see the final girl is like, oh, she made it through this traumatic event, the end, that's it. And we never see her have to deal with the aftermath of going through such a traumatic event. I think honestly one of the few exceptions to that is literally the character Sydney Prescott from Scream, because in the sequels we see how paranoid she becomes after dealing with Ghostface, after all those movies. So I feel like with this show, it's like, look at everything Van has survived, and yet the show is continuing. So we're seeing her, especially in the adult timeline, have to come to terms with all these horrible things that have, like, honestly been chasing her pretty much her whole life since a teenagedom.
Well, and it's interesting actually. I like that you kind of used a movie trope, a horror movie trope to describe her, because she's a cinephile.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the scene where they're leaving, she's leaving with Thaisa and Mari and Akila, and the others to try to get help, or to try to get out of there. And she and Thaisa have that brief conversation about, they kind of talk about horror movie tropes a little bit. Um, and about Lottie, about how Lottie would be the killer, and about black people always, about the black character always dying first. And um so it's funny that that you brought that up. But the other thing is, like, I do kind of see her like that in a way. I also kind of and this is kind of mentioned in the description of the trickster archetype a little bit. It kind of it in some of the descriptions that you read of the trickster archetype, it flat out says it, it flat out states it, and in some descriptions it kind of more hints at it. But um, I almost kind of see the trickster archetype, and especially Van in this show, as sort of a mirror. Um, and it could be argued that her she kind of almost represents hope and survival on this show. Um, like, she's she survived more than anybody. Um, and literally, I mean, physically survived more than anybody. And I feel like if she were to die from cancer, I feel like that would be a horrible trauma for the rest of the characters that they would not be able to get
It would
past.
also be a horrible trauma to me as an audience
Yes.
member.
Same. Same. I mean, Van's one of my favorite characters. So
Yeah, I'm like, oh, not, please, no, not
no.
after you took Nat away from me.
I
Fuck
will fly
no,
to New York.
you're not allowed. No, they're
and
literally
and
not
and
allowed to do it. I will revolt.
I will protest outside the Showtime offices.
Oh man. Well,
But
going to Hope for a second. I think Van, especially after reading the soccer post and some of the specifics, I think she is a person who is looking for the hope or like the will to stay alive, which is important. And I mean, I also think some of it's primal, you know? I mean, like holding some of these characters accountable to their actions of like what they're doing when they're starving is like a little bit tricky, right? Because one,
Yes.
I've never been that hungry in my entire life. And I think as that poster on Reddit said, like your brain kind of like switches gears. And I do think she is acting as the goalie, the like intermediary as a default setting. And I think the search for hope is how she becomes a Lottie devotee. Is like,
Mhm.
do you know? Yeah, it sucks they're in the wilderness doing these breathing exercises in the pretty snow when they could. Like, yeah, why not do it? Why not
Yeah.
do it? You know? Well, then the rest of it, I don't know if the same
Yeah.
attitude applies. But we also know that she says after, after she got half her face eaten off by a wolf and she was almost burned alive on pyre, she said that when she was kind of like in a place, I guess, between life and death, something was out there with them and she saw something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and we never really got a much more of an explanation for that. I mean, she never really talked about it again. I would love to hear her talk about that as an adult. Um, I mean, we saw adult Travis trying to reach trying to reach it when he died. Um, you know, we we still don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Um, there are a whole lot of theories. Um, there's a whole big Final Destination theory. Um, I mean, there's a theory that they're all dead, that this is all like, that they're all in the afterlife, which that that's been debunked through the other characters that are alive in the present. But yeah, it's I would love to see what what she was talking about.
Yeah.
Um,
You know
I
what? You know what else, Kelly? I always think about where Van got literally interrupted, and I'm like, why didn't anyone let her finish? I wanted to know what the rest of it was. Again, in the episode storytelling in season 2, they ask Van to sit down and tell a story. I have to interject and also say I do not know why the writers chose to write it like this. Okay, so they everyone's sitting around Van. They ask her to tell a story. She says, "I'm going to tell you an original story. It's about the wilderness and everything that's out there." And then Lottie interjects and was like, I never wanted to be the leader."
Yes.
And it's like, wait, why? Why did that happen like that? Like, one, I found that very funny. Two, I want to know what the original story was. Like,
I
Van was
know.
definitely going somewhere with that.
Yeah, I was like when that happened, I was like, "Oh my god, shut up, Daryl. Rick is talking."
And then
Sorry, I was just having
we
I was
never
having major
returned
Walking Dead flashbacks.
we never returned to Van's story. Then it just becomes
Yeah.
about the Antler Queen, and they're like, "Nat, congrats, you're the Antler Queen." And then the house burns down. And so now
Yes.
obviously she's not going to finish the story now. So
Um,
rude.
Now I want to talk about her, like, her kind of her devotion to Lottie and everything.
Yes.
Um, I wanted to read something. There was a great interview with Liv Houston where they talked about a lot about Van's character, and revealed a lot of insight. Now, this was after season 1. So season 2 hadn't aired yet, but there's a lot of really good stuff in here. And there's so actually, you know what? I'm gonna bring this up on screen. So this, yeah, I will have the link to this article in the show notes. But there are some great questions in here in this interview. This one in particular, what is it about Van that makes her open to believing Lottie could be clairvoyant or psychic, or however you want to describe what's going on there? Ashley and Bart told me at the beginning, we think of Van as superstitious in the way an athlete is superstitious. Probably doesn't wash her socks on game day. Probably has a certain color she wears for good luck. Jock superstition. Also, I don't think Van responds well to dismissiveness. She pays very close attention. She can be a natural caretaker. She's maybe a little too vulnerable to codependence. Lottie is the only person from Van's perspective who is willing to engage with the fact that something is really wrong. The compass is acting weird. The seance was fucked up. This is strange, and nobody's talking about it. And Thaisa makes Van feel stupid for asking, and nobody else is willing to engage with it. I think Van is really worried about Lottie, and it strikes Van that Lottie is really worried about her. Lottie is one of the only people over the course of this season who goes out of their way to engage with Van about how scary this is and show an interest in actually protecting Van. And there was also something interesting here about the bone
Yeah.
necklace. And
Yep. I was just about to say the bone
yeah,
instinct.
yeah, and it's you know, it's I think it's actually, you know, and it's not in, I apologize. It's actually not in this article. It's in another one. But I will
I can summarize if you can't find it, Kelly.
yeah, oh, so okay, so you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I remember exactly what you're talking about. Essentially, and the source is either I believe it's Liv Hewson who specifically said it. They said that when Lottie gives the protective bone to Van in season 1, that was the first time that Van has ever felt that someone really cared about her and was looking out for her.
Yeah.
And when we were filling out the Enneagram test for Van, we also talked about Van putting a lot more into relationships and I think honestly caring, like love and compassion than what she necessarily gets back from people. And I also think the quote you just read is like a prime example. It's like Van does never wants to feel dismissed, especially by the partner or like number one person she cares about. And so when Thaisa does that, it's incredibly disrespectful. It's going to put a wedge in their relationship, and
Yeah.
it's going to drive her into the arms of Lottie, which like I'm saying like hee hee ha ha, but like I also do, I mean I think, you know, she's looking for someone to care for her, and Lottie is giving that to her.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, and, you know, and she's also it's funny because after we did the Enneagram test, and we'll get to the whole Enneagram thing in a minute. It's well, I won't talk about the Enneagram until we get to it. But which we'll get to shortly.
Um, while
So
while we're talking about Miss Thaisa, let's talk about her relationship with Ty.
yeah. Now there was actually there was an article posted actually after season 1, I think, where Ty basically said that her relationship with Van at this point in the wilderness is largely based on guilt.
You mean the actress playing Ty?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I'm like, when did I miss that? Excuse me. um, that's
No,
really
yeah,
interesting.
Jasmine Savoy Brown basically said that Ty's relationship with Van in the wilderness at this point is largely based on guilt. Because she
Why?
doesn't know how it's she doesn't know how to like when Van comes up to the attic and she has that bow necklace around her neck and she says, if this is going to be a problem, tell me now. And she basically she doesn't want to lose her. And but she's not emotionally, the way she put it is she's not emotionally, she feels bad about everything that happened to her. She feels bad about she feels responsible for what happened to her with the wolf. And she doesn't, but she isn't emotionally mature enough to tell her, look, this is a fundamental difference that we
Yeah,
have, and I'm
it's a
not.
deal breaker.
Yeah. Um, and so she's not emotionally mature enough to tell her that. Um, and so she just kind of goes along with it. Um, and yeah, I didn't necessarily understand from the article why I still didn't necessarily understand from the article why she was saying it was based on guilt. Because it seems to me like there's genuine, like, unconditional love there. I mean,
I agree.
their relationship seems really beautiful still. I mean,
Yeah, and we've talked about, I think especially like the epitome of this, it continues to exist in season 2. It's
yeah.
interesting to view it in Jasmine's lens of being like on Thais's lens side of things, affection from guilt.
Mhm.
Because that's kind of making me shift my perspective. But I think season 1, their relationship is way more mature than any high school relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. No high schoolers have a relationship like Van and Ty's, okay? No one human beings, most human beings don't have a relationship like Van and Ty's. I mean,
Yeah.
that is like I mean, I think most people, I think like 80% of the viewing audience at least was watching that scene where they first said I love you and Van was like telling Thaisa this is something that's happening to you, to us. I mean, I think 80% of the viewing audience was just watching that like sobbing. I
Yeah.
mean, like it's just yeah. Relationships like that, that's they don't exist. I mean, that is like unconditional love. It's it's just like it's going to be interesting to see how something that beautiful and strong falls apart, especially when it's surviving through all of this like horrible shit.
Yeah.
Maybe normalcy is what tears it apart.
Yeah. Oh, we in our live after parties we're doing every week. Please come and join us. We talked about when we think Ty and Van will break up. Which we can get to because I feel like that's the tip of the bottom tip of the iceberg, the butt of
Yes.
the iceberg topic. But I mean I definitely think that's like a really fair point. And also like a relationship where like I mean one partner, I think Van's drive with the relationship with Ty is from a place of love and affection first and foremost, period. Um
Mhm.
Hearing Jasmine say that Ty's relationship to her is coming from a place of guilt, it's like, I mean, you have it right there. It's like it's a lopsided relationship. And like eventually that is just going to tip.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Um,
Um,
we also know Van is very nostalgic. She is definitely, I'd say, stuck in the past. She's obsessed with 90s films. I mean, while you were streaming is literally like a VHS business. So I mean, it's truly sentimental. And I mean, we have that scene where she's watching people's wedding tapes. I don't know exactly what was going through her mind, but I think like even looking at someone else's special day, she has like this appreciation for nostalgia, which can definitely be very toxic and
Yeah.
very tied to trauma.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, a lot of people who go through trauma, kind of get stuck in at a certain at a certain point in their life, and they don't, it's almost like they don't kind of ever almost like they don't age past that point. And that could be part of it, you know? She
Yes.
could be longing for, she could be nostalgic because for everything pre-crash. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I mean,
For the years,
like,
year and a half she missed. And honestly, all the years that came after. It's like
yeah,
just because they were stranded for a year and a half, I mean, the time that you lose in grief and trauma is much longer than necessarily just like the time you're literally away from civilization, you know?
yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, hell, like I had a window. Like, I always joke that I peaked in high school because I I had a window of 4 years in high school where I was trauma free, and like I loved high school. My high school experience was fantastic. And like I'm always like I'm so nostalgic for I was in high school in the 90s. I'm so nostalgic for anything in the 90s, probably, and I always talk about it like it was the greatest time, probably because it was the greatest time of my life. Like I had no trauma then, like I was the happiest. It's and Van is like I'm sure Van loves anything from the time before they crashed because it allows her to kind of escape to a time before she had that trauma.
And to be fair, like I feel like, she has like the Sandra Bullock movie section.
Yes.
All the shit she picks out is good. It's not bad. It's all good. And better than a lot of what's on Netflix. So can't blame a girl. Can't
No,
blame a girl at all.
no.
Um, let's talk about the adult Van timeline. We know that she is against the group calling to get Lottie institutionalized. Um,
Yes.
she doesn't. So the argument she has with Thaisa then is that if it were one of them in Lottie's shoes, they would not want, to get institutionalized. They
Right.
would want them to deal with the issue privately. And she also says that, Lottie is the way she is. I don't know if she quite literally says because of them per se, but I mean, it is, regardless of how she phrased it, it is part of their shared trauma why Lottie is the way she is. So
Right.
it is their responsibility to take
I
care
fixed it.
of Lottie. Yeah.
I
So
fixed it,
it's
Leah.
their responsibility to take care of Lottie versus handing her off to people who really don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's and obviously as a viewing audience, we had our own thoughts on that. Um, but we weren't in the wilderness with them.
Right.
Um, I mean, it's they have this shared trauma, and even Shauna, like when they were about to hunt down Shauna, Shauna said something to the effect of,
there was no it.
yeah,
It was us. And then
right,
Lottie says, is it like, does it matter?
right, which is basically the same thing, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's essentially the same thing. Um, it's Shauna's basically making it sound like it's not supernatural, it's a practical thing, but, um, it's a practical, tangible thing, but they're basically saying the same thing, you know? Um, and, a lot of people there's a very popular theory, a lot of people think that Van a lot of people are thinking that Van kind of orchestrated this whole thing either before she got to Camp Green Pine or after in order to cure her cancer, and I don't think that's the case at all.
I would disagree with that. She seems pretty resigned to dying, frankly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the look on her face at the end of the finale when Lottie says the wilderness is pleased and she looks at Van and says, "You'll see." Van looks horrified
Yeah.
because I think that look on Van's face means I think that look is her realizing, like, is putting two and two together and thinking, shit, my cancer is going to get cured because of this, isn't it? Because Natalie died and holy fuck.
And she's not prepared to keep on living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like I think that's a huge realization that's just hitting her at that moment. I don't think she orchestrated anything. Um, and yeah, conversation that she had with Ty at the table when they were making the masks. I think Lauren Ambrose played that so brilliantly. I mean, she's the one person in this show who, like, I was obsessed with um, before they came on this show. And to see her, to have somebody who I'm just like, whose work I just watch over and over and over, and then to see her just like completely inhabit, to take over somebody else's character, to play a character the way somebody else is playing it is just fascinating to me. And she did it so well.
Yeah.
Like,
She's truly
she
good.
just
Mhm.
like she is Van. I mean, like she just I she played Van so well. I mean, she was so true to Liv Houston's Van in that scene, I thought.
I
She did
agree.
such a great job.
I feel like she did an excellent job stepping in to a character being seen both for the first time, but also that's like already being played by someone else, which
Yeah,
is extremely unique and tricky. And she nailed it.
yeah, yeah, she
Um,
really did.
Moving a little further, we're going deeper into the iceberg. Jack is definitely deceased if he's this far in the ocean. Um, we know Van, honestly, rightfully so, not a big fan of Jackie.
Yeah, yeah,
Not a big
not
fan
a
of
big fan of
Jackie
Jackie.
after Jackie left her for dead. Has lots of great jokes, lots of great one-liners to say about it.
Yeah, and
Which
I think that
also all those one-liners are how Liv Hewson got to stick around as a character, which is really sweet.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
She I believe was written off to die, and then they saw how funny they are, and the writers were like, okay, let's keep Van.
Yeah, yeah,
So
for sure. Actually, it was from what I read, it was one particular thing that they did during when they were filming the pilot that made them wanna keep them around, and it was when they were filming the woods party, and and Jackie gathered everybody around, and Liv Hewson, when they were all following Jackie, Liv Hewson goes and fills up their beer again. And they're like, that was because they just thought that that was something that Van would
Yeah,
do.
she fills it up and then I think she like chugs it.
Yeah. And they just loved that so much.
Yeah.
And like just that one little thing made them want to keep Van around longer.
Yeah.
I'm so glad they did.
Yeah, I'm so, so glad. She is absolutely indispensable, of
Yeah.
a character.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think even honestly prior to the, Left 4 Dead incident, Van has never really been the biggest Jackie fan. I feel like it's partially what Jackie represents,
Mhm.
which also I feel like aligns kind of with the trickster archetype.
Yeah.
Um, and also, though, I think Jackie as an individual is just quite annoying to Van.
Yeah. I mean, Jackie represents Jackie is basically like the anti-trickster, you know? Um, the trickster is kind of there to like to be almost like a foil for characters like Jackie. Um, you know, it's there to like upset the Jackies of the world. Jackie represents too much normalcy. Um, you know, the trickster isn't really typically accepting of that kind of normalcy and those kinds of societal norms and homogeny. Um, and but Jackie, I mean, you know, uh, Van obviously we know is not is one that does not like, as we've covered, does not like to be dismissed and easily feels you know, it does not like to feel rejected. And I mean, Jackie left her for dead.
Yes.
And she took that very personally.
Imagine that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, she's not a fan of Jackie.
Not a fan. She also described Kai's Kai. Who is Kai? Ty, excuse me. Ty's Fugue state slash dark Thaisa as something that is happening to them, which is really sweet. And also, Dark Ty literally bites her. So yeah, it is happening to her.
Yes. Yes, exactly. But yeah, that was so sweet. I mean, if you know, if for anybody that has ever um struggled with something like, you know, a mental illness or anything, it's hearing something like that. It's like that's the kind of thing that you know, you would just give anything to hear from somebody, you
Yeah,
know? Like I mean, that's just incredible because it's something that you just feel like no one could possibly understand you.
yeah.
And it's just hearing something like that, it's just like, oh my God. I sobbed. I sobbed during that scene. Like, oh my God, it was so touching. Van's wife material. Van is total wife material, man.
Wifey is hell.
Mhm.
Speaking of wifey, or I don't know, just sweet romantic gesture moments. When time, Van has a mask to cover her face after she was attacked by wolves. Ty also wears a mask so that she doesn't feel alone, which must have felt also incredible. Like,
Another beautiful scene.
yeah, a really, really sweet scene. But then Ty says that she doesn't have to wear the mask because she's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. They're high. I mean, they're high on mushrooms,
Yeah.
but you know, she says, I need to see you, like when they're basically having sex in the woods. And she says, I need to see you. And she takes off her mask and she says, you're so fucking beautiful. You know, they're high on mushrooms, but It carries over.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it stands nonetheless.
yeah, and I mean, it's just she values Ty's opinion so much, um, that she never wears the mask again. We never see her
Yeah.
in the mask again, which I just think is so beautiful that, like, Thaisa gave her that much confidence, you know? I think that's really sweet.
Yeah. Two
By the
parallel.
way,
Uh-huh.
um, I just wanted to share, I just read for the first time something about the scene where Akila is sewing up her face. Um, and so the way that they did that was, uh, so Jasmine was holding Liv's head, and Kia, the way they did it was they had a plate on Liv's cheek, against Liv's cheek, and then a prosthetic piece over the plate. And so Kia was sewing the prosthetic piece. So she actually was really nervous because she couldn't tell, like, what was the prosthetic piece and what was
Oh
actually her
my
skin.
gosh.
So she was terrified that she was gonna actually, like, cut into Liv's skin. Um, but so whenever Liv couldn't see what she was doing, so, whenever Kia, um, would make a stitch, Jasmine would, like, kind of, um, poke her thumb into Liv's head to let them know to react.
Oh, mhm.
So I just thought I just wanted to share
That's
that because I
so
just read that.
funny. Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, I can't imagine, like, Kia King must have just been terrified because, like, I can't imagine doing that. Wow.
Yeah, and the makeup artist that, like, applies it is like, "Hey, just so you know, this took, 2.5 hours to apply, and this prosthetic is $800, so please don't fuck it up, okay?" And it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm trying."
And for Kia King to not have any idea what was actual skin and what was the prosthetic, I mean,
So
it
scary.
they clearly did an excellent job.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't seem like Liv has any scars, so I think it
Yeah.
went well. Um, two kind of like parallel comments made about the two different timelines. Jackie, in the pilot or pilot, yes, pilot. When she lines up all the girls and has them say nice things about one another, she makes a comment to Van. Her nice, words to Van are, "Your smile makes me feel happy every time I see it," which is very sweet. And I just think it's an interesting line when you compare it to the season 2 finale, in the adult timeline, when Lottie tells Van, it looks like the light has left her eyes.
Yeah.
Which I always thought that her smile, the smile comment, and I mean, Van does have a really nice smile. She has a really nice laugh. It's always interesting to see someone so smiley and happy that's dealing with God knows what at home, honestly. Like, I feel like based on what we've seen, it's implied that the mother is an alcoholic, but we don't really get any more specific details. But yeah,
I
I just
mean
always thought those two comments bookending each other were very interesting.
one of the greatest scenes in season 1 was when they find the lake. And, when they get to the lake, well, Thaisa finds the lake, and then they start walking to the lake. And when they get there, Van's the first one to see it. And it's one of the greatest scenes because her her happiness is so infectious through the screen, and you
Yeah,
can't help but smile. Like, she just gets this huge smile on her face, and she's like, "Oh, hell yeah, bitches!" And she, like, just goes running toward the lake and jumps in, and it's like, you just can't help but smile, you know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um times she wasn't smiling as much. When in the adult timeline, when Ty and Van kiss at Lottie's compound, not when Dark Ty kisses her, which was also sexy, but different. When real Ty and Van kiss, Van immediately acknowledges this is a bad idea. I
Well,
think,
at first it's very, very passionate. That was a
yeah,
hot kiss.
also a sexy kiss.
Yes.
Yes, but
But
then, I mean, once they pull away, Van is like, "You're married, and your
yeah.
wife's in a coma,
Yeah.
and your child is, I don't know, still at school? Like, who knows?"
Yeah.
I feel like just, I mean, from the moment we see Lauren Ambrose and Thaisa enters, it's like the song "Bad Idea" by Olivia Rodrigo. It's just like, Thaisa walks in and she's trouble. Like, and Van sees that and is like, oh shit. Oh
Yeah.
shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, did we cover everything in that?
I Let's talk about her dual nature before we move on.
Yes.
So she has obviously a lot of individuality. I feel like that's where the the distaste for Jackie is kind of like rooted in that. And I feel like that is like a prime example. I mean, also it's like, again, she's a butch lesbian in 1996. I mean,
Mhm.
like, she's already not following societal norms aside from like everything else that's happening in Yellowjackets on top of it, you know? Um,
Yeah.
her individuality and her willingness to follow Lottie are part of her dual nature. It's like, yes, she is an individual, but she is still very much a follower. And I feel
Mhm.
like that goes again right back to the goalie theory. She is kind of like just doing what is best for what she perceives as being best for the team overall. And I think she sees that as, we need hope, we need
Oh, what
peace.
happened? I lost my oh, sorry. Okay. It's back up.
She needs hope, she needs peace, and I think she sees that that will come about by following Lottie.
Yeah.
I
You
I
also described
do.
her as being like a henchman, which is a great way to
Yes,
describe her.
yes. I would 100% see, I mean, that's how I see Van. I see her
Yeah.
as being a henchman and also kind of doing Lottie's dirty work,
Mhm.
frankly. Not that Lottie has the intention of making Van be that person. I think Van naturally like assumes that role.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Um,
she
yeah.
is, she's very Liv Houston even describes her as having a tendency to be codependent.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
and she definitely does. She definitely has a tendency to be codependent. Um,
You
and
okay,
I
wait, I'm sorry. I'm
Oh, no,
sorry.
no,
I
no.
just got
No,
so
go ahead.
excited.
Go ahead.
I feel like we just have to go ahead and, like, would you describe Thais and Van's relationship as codependent? Because
Um,
I would.
yeah, I definitely would, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think what we see on the screen, um, I think what we see on the screen with them is beautiful, and we see this beautiful, like, unconditionally loving and unconditionally supportive relationship that, like, anybody would kill for. Um, but I also think it's codependent at the same time.
Yeah, it can be both.
Yeah.
I like, the more we talk about their relationship, I'm like, this makes me so sad. This makes me so sad, but it's okay. It's okay. It can be both things at once.
It
And
can.
I mean, I
That's
really,
the thing with trauma. When you
yes,
introduce trauma, it adds so many layers, you know?
yes. And as we're hitting the butt of this iceberg, the tippy bottom. Um, that is why, for the one gazillionth time, I am so interested in seeing more about Van's relationship with her family. And I mean, I
Mhm.
feel that way basically across all the characters, but especially because they give us that clip with the mom and the pilot. I've
Yeah.
been waiting for them to return to that. Because I mean, if you have, like, first off, I think her, like, happy sunny disposition comes from a place of, like, well, I'm trying to blend in, fit in. You know how you can fit in? Ask any comedian, tell a joke. Like, people are funny so that they can blend in and fit in and make light of something very dark.
Yes.
So I feel like, not always, but especially in Van's case, I think that her, like, choice to be funny is rooted from a place of sadness and trauma, family
Mhm.
trauma before any of this. And it will naturally lend itself, like, if she's not receiving the love and affection she deserves at home from her caretakers who are supposed to give that, she's going to look for that literally anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I think that if we had seen more of the Ty Van relationship prior to the plane crash, I think we would still say that it was codependent, because I think the familial love need that's not being met is coming from Thaisa. And then they get out to the wilderness. Oh, it turns out, like, the more she actually gets to know Thaisa in this setting, Thaisa is being dismissive. Thaisa also isn't being very honest. They have, like, fundamental differences. So now this other type of love, of, like, a place of kind of like loyalty and friendship, not necessarily like sexual or romantic, is coming from Lottie.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah. Yeah, it's, there's I think that Van is the other thing, though, is I think that Van is the type of character where whoever she's in a relationship with, I think she's always going to be the more giving one.
Yeah,
Um,
so sad.
and I think I think that she unfortunately, I think she probably I mean, she's codependent by nature.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think I don't think she's ever going to get back what she gives. Um, but, which is
Gosh,
unfortunate.
I just feel so sad thinking about Van now.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh God, don't see myself in the character. Don't see myself in the character. Um, we talked about this when we did the Enneagram test as well, of kind of her not receiving what she gives. It's also, and I think she is a person that is, love and relationships are the most important thing to her.
Yeah,
So I think when we're looking at, oh, present day Van, adult timeline Van is depressed and sad, and Lottie describes her as the light, no light left in her eyes.
yeah,
Yes, I think that's going to come from having a terminal illness and, thinking you're about to die. But also, there's no Lottie left in her life. There's no Ty left in her life. And as far as we know, she's not really seeing anyone. Or that she told Ty, because Ty kind of asked about it and she just kind of, skirts the question. I think it's probably safe to presume, like, Van isn't seeing anyone as an adult.
yeah,
I think that there is no reason for living. And then just being sick on top of it is like, okay, well, now I'm completely resigned. So I think when they go out to the let's talk about the switch that flips in the time that Van says we're going to handle Lottie privately, and then
Yeah.
the look in her eyes that returns, similar to, you know, seeing Javi die and showing little compassion to Travis when she's being very kind of surgical about it. When she decides they're going to hunt Shauna for real.
Yeah.
Like
Um,
I don't think she was like, yeah, let's kill Shauna. This is me with a knife in my hand. Let's kill Shauna. I'm gonna be all better because I want to live. I feel like, just like Juliette Lewis's monologue as Nat in the pilot, saying like, once I returned, I lost my purpose. I feel like Van is someone who lost their purpose until she was around the fire, and they're handing out cards again.
yeah. Um, yeah, which, I mean, something did I um I kind of there were a couple of things that I put on the bottom rung that I accidentally I kind of screwed up the bottom part of this iceberg, and I meant to put them up higher, and I duplicated them about the cards. And I put a little typo in there. I spelled Liv's name wrong. I spelled Liv's name as Licks.
All right. I almost called Lottie Laddie earlier, and I
Oh,
called
nice.
Kai Kai, so it's okay.
Um, but yeah, I meant to I meant to put I don't know, did you want to talk about the cards?
Absolutely, I want to talk about the cards.
Okay. So the cards Liv Hewson revealed in an interview that the cards were actually Van's idea.
Yes. Yes.
So,
We don't
playing
get
into the
to see
trickster
that
role again.
scene. Yes. We don't get to see that scene. I would love if they would return to it, like flashback or something. I
Yeah.
kind of doubt that they will, but I I wish we got to see that. But I think again this goes back to the waiver of compassion and coldness, because the cards at the end of the day are like the most like bipartisan way to select someone to be killed without anyone feeling like they're being targeted. But I mean, she does it
Yeah.
with such intensity. Actually, it's Misty that they have handing out the cards in the wilderness timeline, which is funny because I don't know. I feel like it's like, okay, well, Misty's kind of like our real big bad if we're gonna pick any of them that are the most if we had to make a hierarchy of villainous Yellowjackets, I think she would be pretty high up there. But I believe it's Van in the adult timeline that is the one passing out the cards, and she throws them into the fire when they're done with it. Because I was like, well, I would just be like, I would take the Queen of Hearts out of the deck and little magic trick with the cards and be like, I don't know, Lottie, it's crazy. None of us have gotten the card yet.
Right? Um Now what's interesting is when they picked the cards in when they picked the cards in the wilderness timeline, they were they had the cards arranged so that they picked very specific cards. So whatever cards they chose, they were meant to choose.
Yes.
So Van got the Jack of Hearts, which I think has some like I want to say it represents like romance and friendship, but I'm not like I don't really it didn't really when I read the symbolism behind it, nothing really like stood out to me about it. So it's interesting. I don't really know where they were going with that. Um,
I also think it's interesting that she's the one who chose to use the cards. The card they selected as, being the one for death is the Queen of Hearts, and she is a jack of the same suit.
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like there's some kind of link there of her being the person that chooses it. And also, again, kind of henchman, Jack of
exactly.
Hearts,
Yeah, that's what I was
henchman
thinking.
card vibe.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Um, yeah, totally. Um, Now, since we're in this bottom area here, let's talk about the Enneagram. So we took her Enneagram. We took an Enneagram test for her. And what's interesting is I've I've looked up so I kind of, I searched Reddit and some other places and no I have not seen anybody guess Van as a type 2. Um we're the only ones who guessed Van as type 2 and honestly, I think I'm not saying anybody else got it wrong, but I think that like
I felt pretty good
just
about all the questions. We answered like 50 questions, and I felt
yeah,
pretty like, because at first I was like, I don't know, like how can we take this as like a person that's a character? But then we were answering them and I was like, no, I think we know the answers to these.
I think that Enneagram, I think that I feel pretty good about Van being a type 2.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
yeah, I mean, it's we talked a lot about Van being codependent, and, it's one thing about, type 2s is, all of these characters are traumatized. So, you wanna look at it at, like, an average to unhealthy type 2 because that's pretty much all of
Yeah.
these characters. And an average to unhealthy type 2 seeks validation of their worth by obeying their superego's demands to sacrifice themselves for others. They believe they must always put others first and be loving and unselfish if they want to get love. So
Yeah.
it's, that's kind of like that kind of goes into that codependent type of thing. Um, it's it's very kind of like yeah, I mean, they tend to be codependent. Um, Addictions, abusing food and over-the-counter medications. There was we I don't think we still understand, like, what was going on with with
The pills.
the pills because, like, were those for because she said they were her mom's, but then we saw her taking them. Were those actually
There
for
is
her?
like
Was she
no solid answer. God, I really hope they don't give Van a pill addiction. That would make
yeah.
me so sad. I
She could
feel
be
like,
taking them for her cancer, you know? I
yes, I was
mean
I was gonna say the same thing. It had, like, V. Palmer on it, and
yeah.
she explains it as, I guess, her mother's name, it also starts with V, and they were her mother's pills, but she's taking them. I kind of feel like, just, like, my vibe check of that is I think that they were hers, and it's some kind of, like, cancer treatment or something to kinda, like, subdue the pain.
Yeah.
Hopefully she doesn't have a pill addiction. I kind of don't think the show will make someone else be an addict in the same way, especially since it just had such a dramatic ending with Nat's story.
Yeah.
And really, like, Nat's death is really framed in a way that makes me very upset of being just around her addiction. So
Yeah, same.
I don't think the
Totally.
show will come back to that.
I hope
Um,
not.
yeah, God, begging to the praying to the Yellowjackets showrunner.
No more
Don't
of
do
that, please. No more.
that. But yeah, we oh yes, this is our Enneagram results we have pulled up for our folks who are listening. So if we're taking the wings into account, she's a 2-wing 1 if you're
Yeah.
very deep into Enneagram lore.
Yeah.
Um
Doing one.
let's talk about our predictions for next season, huh, Kelly?
Yeah. Okay. So will Lisa be back? Um,
Who knows?
yeah. So I mean, when we saw her, now I interviewed Nicole Maines. If you haven't seen or listened to that interview, please check it out. It's on the channel. She was a blast. Really funny. Just I had such a great time chatting with her. Um, what's hilarious is she explained that it was written into the script that something that got taken out was there was a shot of Lisa toward the end where like the camera focused on Lisa in her normal street clothes, basically just like disappearing into the background, just like walking away. And after she said that, and then I watched the show back, then I realized, oh, okay, she was in her street clothes. I didn't realize it on first watch because she had on like a long purple coat or a long purple cardigan or something. Um, so I didn't realize it at first, but then when I watched it back, she had on non-purple clothes underneath that. Um,
Hmm.
so she was in her street clothes, like, during
That's
that whole
very
scene.
interesting. I wonder because having the purple jacket on top, I feel like clothing symbology wise, I feel like it's kind of a take it or leave it thing where she's now now that the leader of Sunshine Honey is literally trying to phenobarbital slash like hunt her childhood friends because something's compelling her to. She's like, I don't know if I'm going to stay here.
Yeah.
But that being said, I feel like they introduced Nicole Maines' character for a reason. I could see her coming back and dealing with kind of like the fallout of Sunshine Honey, especially since she isn't like Lottie's right hand man, more like kind of personal assistant. But I don't know who else would assume leader who is going to take care of Sunshine Honey now that Lottie is institutionalized. Which brings me to my next theory. I actually think Van is going to be the one. I think, okay, I feel like it's safe to say Van's not going to have cancer next season. If she
Yeah.
does, my blood is boiling.
Yes.
um,
Same.
I feel like fans pretty much unanimously are like, yeah, Van isn't going to have cancer next season. So she's going to have a lot of life choices to make. One, Thaisa back up in her business again. I think if she's smart, as much as I would love to see Ty and Van in the adult timeline, like making out and getting it on. And I hope they do give us, one of those scenes just, for fun. I don't think Van, in her right mind, is going to choose to be with Thaisa in the adult timeline. I think Thaisa is way too chaotic. She's literally still married. And she has a son, and she's supposed to be like a senator right now. And she hasn't been doing that. And Van is simply not cut out to be senator wifey material.
Yeah. And I
It's
have a theory that that might have something to do with why they didn't end up together.
yes. Okay. Yes. So I think she will not choose to continue her relationship with Ty. I think they'll still like communicate with each other. I think that Lottie is going to hand off Sunshine Honey to Van because Van needs money. And I think there's a good chance that while you were streaming, we'll go under, unfortunately. As much as I honestly just wish that business really did exist, period.
Yeah.
So I could totally see her running Sunshine Honey. I mean, and also like, I'm sure she's very upset that Nat died, but I think that that whole ritual gave her purpose again, and she will continue to run towards the thing that is giving her purpose.
I hope that's the case. And that Van does take over Sunshine Honey. I could actually see Misty and Walter running it together. But Misty's gonna be in she's who knows what kind of state Misty's gonna be in next season.
Yeah. Dreading it.
Yeah, me too. But I would love to see Van running Sunshine Honey. But I also would love to see Lisa back.
Mhm.
What upsets me about the idea of Lisa not being back is that I feel like, I don't know. I mean, Natalie was my favorite character. I mean, Natalie's my favorite character in both timelines, and I feel like now that the adult version is gone, like I feel like Natalie and Van are kind of tied for being my favorite character.
Yeah.
But I feel like Lisa, um, I feel like Lisa was there to kind of like drive Natalie's character forward. And I feel like with Natalie being dead, I don't know. I feel like them getting rid of Lisa is just kind of a waste. Do you know what I mean?
I 100% agree with you. I think that unfortunately, like, I do think that season 2, like, Lisa's character is meant to be pretty much strictly a foil to Nat's character. All those scenes, I mean, it's literally like just very like blatant, like Nat emotional growth scenes. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not the biggest fan. I'm not the biggest fan of those scenes. But I think it's a waste. I think it's a waste to introduce a character that isn't just immediately killed off and that's not police officer douche face. And then the Kelly eye roll is so funny. And then just do away with her. That's why I think if Van does take over Sunshine Honey, she will need someone who understands the like logistical workings of it, and I think that person could be Lisa.
And if Sunshine Honey comes back, they need an anchor, I think.
Yes.
They need something to, they need something to tie both of those worlds together. And if Lottie is not there, it needs to be Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
So
Agreed.
it's so either they're going to, so I think either they're going to bring Sunshine Honey back and Lisa will be back, or Sunshine Honey is just not going to be around anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
Regardless, I think we will see Van visiting Lottie. If we don't literally see Van visiting Lottie, which would be a shame, because I mean, come on, like if I thought Simone Kessel might be the adult timeline cast member that we have one season with, and then I thought I honestly like my prediction
Same.
earlier in season 2 was that Simone, adult Lottie would die.
I
So
thought for sure Lottie was going to die.
Yeah. So if we have Simone Kessel, we need to be using her in scenes. So I think we will see Van visiting Lottie. I think she is true to her word, and she still will have that loyalty to Lottie that's been kind of like reinvigorated. Okay, I want to talk about the wilderness timeline with Van.
Yes.
Because I have a little theory.
All right.
So I think, okay, talking about the Jungian archetypes one more time. I think that we are going to see how Misty and Nat became so close, or like how Misty perceives her and Nat as being close. I mean, imagine this, okay? Writers season 3, adult Misty timeline. Grieving, she's sad, she's depressed. We don't like those scenes. Cut in with Nat and Misty bonding because Nat is Antler Queen and Misty is her little court jester. That was me tipping my I just did a silly gesture like I was a jester. Never mind. I'm getting so excited, I'm hyperactive. Anyway, so I think that the Yellowjacket girls are about to split up into 2 camps, and when
Yes.
they do that, I think that that might be the end of Van and Ty's relationship. We've done a lot of speculating about when Van and Ty will break up. I could totally see them being on again, off again, like repeatedly. We know that Ty dates a slew of other girls when she's at Harvard.
Right.
So it totally could be a thing, like you brought up, where it's like once they're in normalcy or like back in civilization, the relationship no longer serves its purpose and it just completely disintegrates, probably for a final time. I also think just like this is like their first like gay relationship that we know of together, and like this is a high school relationship and those things aren't really meant to last. And Ty's side of the relationship is bound by guilt. I think there's going to be just like 2 camps of girls. I think we might see Lottie, Van, Misty, and Nat on one side. I also think, going back to the archetypes, Van and Misty, like along with Nat, all low key have a lot in common. They are
Yes.
all kind of outsiders, and Van and Misty specifically are little tricksters.
Yes.
So that's why I think that they will be in one camp together. The other girls, I'm not quite sure where everyone specifically is going to fall, but I do think those girls will be in a pack together.
I'm on team Van, Misty, and Nat.
Yeah. Duh. Yeah, same. I'm on team, like we've already talked about it. Kelly and I were there. We would, Misty, Crystal, and ourselves would, I think they wouldn't have even decided to do the cards. They'd be like, we want to kill these bitches. They're annoying as shit. We'd be we'd be putting on too many theatrical productions, or like literally singing. I would be singing
Yes.
all the time.
Oh my God. My husband calls me the human jukebox. Okay.
Oh man. Okay. From the scenes we see of Dark Ty and Van, we have that scene. Dark Ty loves Van.
Yes.
Dark Ty loves Van. I don't know that Dark Ty is necessarily an enemy, but Dark Ty does love Van. And we see Van untie Ty, so that Dark Ty can lead her to that spot in the forest.
Yeah.
I think Van is going to do a little bit more with Dark Ty. She knows she can't get anywhere with cognizant Thaisa, but she really is making headway with dark Ty and learning more with the symbol and that hiding spot. And I think she's going to pursue that. And I think that inevitably Ty might find out about that. And that is where things are really going to fall apart for them.
So there was an interesting scene in season 2 where Ty was at the window and she sees her reflection. She sees a reflection of Dark Ty, of Fugue Ty,
Yes.
and she turns around and it's
Chilling,
in his
so
van.
scary.
Yeah, it is. It is. It totally is. And she turns around in its van. And so she's seeing Van's reflection as Fugue Ty. And then, and then we've got the scene in the present day where Van's Fugue reflection is in the mirror telling her to go to her.
Yes.
So there's definitely some kind of weird relationship between Van and Fugue State Ty.
I also think it's interesting talking about Van's dual nature when she is literally in a relationship with someone with a split personality.
Yeah.
Um,
She
it's very
also
parallel,
and she also was very like, it's interesting the way that when they ate Jackie, the way
Mhm.
that she was very like the way that she broke the news to Ty,
Jackie or Ty, we ate her.
you ate her face. I mean, Ty was horrified that like she thought an animal got to her or something, and she's
I
like,
literally laughed when that happened.
yes,
I
you
was just
ate
like,
her
too
face.
funny. Too good. Too good.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like she's in a relationship with two Ties.
Yeah.
Um,
And Thaisa's border, she's kind of got a Jekyll and Hyde lover as well. You know what I mean? Like Van also has that. It's just less concrete,
yeah, 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 exactly. Um, yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. It's funny because you brought up that theory, and that's something that I had never thought about. And I was on Reddit, and it seems like that's a pretty popular theory, actually.
Yeah, I mean, rightfully so. I think if I was a writer listening to this podcast episode, you should hire me to be the writer's room. But also I mean, I think like from a writing standpoint, it's like just full of drama, it's like, why
Mhm.
would you not, you have someone with a split personality who just wakes up and is suddenly somewhere else. It's like, imagine Thaisa just like wakes up and she was in the middle of doing some kind of weird ritual with Van. And
Yeah,
she's like, what the hell is this? Like, I told you, I don't want to be involved in this. And Van's like, oh, well, and it's just a great way to exasperate their core differences. So like why not exploit that, for the
yeah,
highest dramatic impact. We're 100% going to see them fight. Whether they fight and then reconcile, I could also totally see like they're going to have Lauren Ambrose hook up with Ty in the adult timeline too. Like
oh, they have
they
to.
have
It has
to.
to happen.
They have to. Are they going to actually be together? Like I very much doubt it.
Yeah. But
Especially
yeah,
like
I will sue. I'll start a class action lawsuit if they don't hook up.
great. As far as Van's adult relationship to the other girls like Misty and Shauna, Misty is gonna be a mess. I don't know that I don't really see her being angry towards Shauna. I could even see part of her being grateful to Misty. I feel like the dark version of this story, which frankly seems to be how the writers are taking the adult timeline. is that I think although she is shocked and horrified that Nat died, part of her is relieved, part of her is grateful. And I don't think she's going to have hostility towards Misty. I don't think she's going to resent Shauna. I do think she is going to stay in touch with the other Yellowjackets. I think that now that we've seen finally, all of the adult Yellowjackets in the same place at the same time, the show is going to want to keep doing that. So Van is going to be in touch absolutely with Ty. But I think we are going to see her with more of the other cast again, too.
Do we think, though, that she will, if Lisa's back, do we think that she'll show resentment toward Lisa because Lisa was the one that was supposed to die?
Yes, I think if anyone is bearing the brunt of like the look what you made me do of it all, I actually think it's going to be Lisa. I think it's way easier to be upset at someone that's on the outside of this group than it is to be mad at one of their own.
Yeah, I could see Van especially being that, being the goalie. We'll see that self-sacrifice in Natalie, in what Natalie did, and and respect that. But at the same time, have it make her totally depressed and take it out on Lisa.
Yes.
I could definitely.
Is there anything else we want to discuss as far as Van as the big bad theory?
Yes. Okay, so yeah, I brought down the iceberg because we're pretty much on our last point here. So I wanted to talk about the whole big bad theory. So many people have kind of talked about Van as being like the new big bad, which
we disagree with.
Yeah, I'm really
to
not
be fair, Kelly and I. Well, Kelly got me to believe. Season 1 that Van was the one doing the ritual with the dog head in Thaisa's house. I 100% believe that theory. And it was so funny because I brought it up to you the other day and I was like, yeah, I don't know who came up with that, but I totally believed it. And you were just like howling. So you're like, oh, that was me.
Like that theory was so dumb. I don't know what I was thinking. I was smoking crack. I don't know.
We didn't know. We didn't know more about Van because now once we have season 2, it's like, oh, no.
Yeah, it's so funny when you watch a show and the theories that you come up with, and then later you look back at them and you're like, oh my God, that theory was so ridiculous. But yeah, the big bad theory I just think is kind of ridiculous. And I'm not sure why. I mean, okay, first of all, if there is a big bad, there's a character I have in mind that I would point at, and it's not, well, one of two characters, and it's not Van. But let me Liv Houston was actually asked about this and had a great response to it, which I just want to bring up here. So to fans who think Van is the big bad now, Van, who's been minding her business in Ohio for 25 years, give me a break. If somebody's evil, you don't have to think about what their motivations are. You're invited to engage with these characters as human beings insofar as you want to or decide to. But to see people try and react to Yellowjackets as moral absolutism, I'm not sure what show you're watching. Everyone's going to do terrible things on the Doing Terrible Things to Survive show. Exactly, yeah. Liv Houston. Yeah, it's this is not a black and white show. It's there's no big bad on this show. Except, I mean, there are a couple of characters who really kind of go overboard.
The big bad is the flight for is the plane for failing. It's actually,
yeah, I think we can all agree that Sarah Dusha is definitely a an evil character who must die.
Mhm.
But I before we go, did you have any other thoughts on the whole like people talking about Van as the big bad?
Not really. It's like, hey, look at this woman on my shirt. I don't know. I think I'm wearing a shirt with Misty's bloody face on it, if you're
Right.
listening. Um, like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. I do think they are kind of misconstruing, going back to the archetypes. I think they are misconstruing someone who helps create or further chaos in that henchman role as being the big bad. But I mean, the whole point of the show is like, even Lottie does not intend to be the bad guy. Everything she's doing because she thinks it's for the good of the group. She thinks she's helping them. Like,
Exactly.
everyone feels that way. So I don't think we're gonna see Van be carved out as a specifically big bad. I think if anything, she's going to fall further into the jester archetype.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and before we go, uh, I just wanted to bring a couple of things just to further emphasize that I think that we got Van's Enneagram right. So each Enneagram is associated with an animal. Van's type 2, the type 2 is associated with the dog. Um, guess who has a dog? Aisa.
Guess who's a dog killer?
Taisa is not going to cut Van's head off.
I mean,
Caring,
I
affectionate,
really hope not.
no. Caring, affectionate, loving, and joyous type 2s could well relate to dogs, such as Labradors, Golden Retrievers, and other people-pleasing breeds. um, but yes, that's all it says about it. But yeah, so I just thought that was interesting. And there, anything that we bring up here, I'm gonna include. There's also a great article from Slate written by Madeline Ducharme, which I'm not going to read here because it's kind of long, but I'm going to include it in the show notes. It's an ode to Yellowjackets' most unkillable character. And it's really cute. It's really great. So I'm going to include that in the show notes as well.
Yeah,
But
I will send a couple of my Reddit thread links that like expand on some of the points slash like further some of the points that I've brought up, just so everyone can see that. And the folks who posted can get credit where credit is due, because very well written, very thoughtful stuff on the internet sometimes.
yes, for sure. And yeah, and I'll also post the iceberg I'll post the image of the iceberg that we created for this episode in the community tab. Also, I meant to mention this at the top of the episode, and I forgot to, but I need to start doing this. But at the because we always get comments later on. This episode is being recorded on January 20th, 2024, after season 2, before season 3. So if we're in the middle of season 4 by now and a lot has
Yeah,
changed.
don't call me stupid, okay?
Yeah. If you're watching this, like, and Van's already dead and, a whole bunch of stuff has been revealed that has completely canceled out half of what we've spoken about. Just don't comment. We're recording this before season 3. Also, as Pamela mentioned, make sure you join us on Sunday nights because we're recording our Yellowjackets rewatch parties. you can join our Patreon for access to our watch parties. Our after parties are where we talk about the episodes. We're going into, well, by the time this episode gets posted, we'll be going into episode 4 of season 1. But we will every Sunday night at 9 p.m. or I'm sorry, 10 p.m. We changed the time. Every Sunday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, there will be a watch party for the episode in our private Discord. Seats are limited. They're private watch parties, small gatherings, because, it's a watch party. We're not trying to publicly broadcast a TV show, we're not your cable provider. And then right afterward, we will discuss the episode on our YouTube channel. There's a live chat. You can even call in. And, if you're feeling extroverted that night. So yeah, you don't have to join our Patreon to participate in the live chat afterward. Only if you want to join the watch party. Our Patreon is, the address is right at the bottom there, patreon.com/cyborgqueenmedia. Also, please keep an eye on our community tab. You can subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Once our second channel is up and running, then I'll post the link in the community tab on our main channel. I'm starting my disability and mental health show soon, and I'm going to be talking about a lot of really important stuff. I was supposed to start it almost 2 weeks ago, but we've been so busy, and I really wanted to get this van episode out first because this was like the first episode with our new format. So it took up a lot of time, making sure we got it right. And so this is going to be our new format for our deep dives going forward.
Yeah, we put a lot of work, as I hope you can tell, into making this episode concise. It's over 2 hours, and imagine if it wasn't.
Oh God.
Making it be the best it can be. Also, if you don't know who I am, I'm Pamela, and I'm the official new co-host of Antler Queens.
Yes. Yay.
Don't know if people know that, but I am. So you will see me a lot. Hopefully you like me. I also wrote a personal essay, I guess. I wrote a personal essay in the Patreon on my love of teen dramas and facing a lot of both industry and personal sexism and pertaining to teen dramas, prestige TV, and where Yellowjackets falls in all of it. So if you're part of our Patreon, you'll get to read it, and I hope you like it.
And it's great. It's a really great read. We've got some great reads in there from Pamela and from Dawn, who co-hosts our Walking Dead stuff with me. She used to write for Undead Walking. So there's lots of stuff there's lots of goodies in our Patreon. And if we can, get it moving, there's a lot of fun stuff to look forward to. We've got a Cards Against Yellowjackets deck that, we've been wanting to put together a get together where we can play some games, maybe some Cards Against Yellowjackets.
Family Feud.
Yes, Family Feud.
Squirrel Summer.
Yes.
Gotta do that. Please leave us a 5-star review. I would love to thank the new incoming 5-star reviews at the end of each podcast moving forward. We also have A-Hole Queens live Monday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific time, right, Kelly?
Yes, 8 p.m. Pacific time.
Great.
11 p.m. Eastern.
A-Hole Queens is our other podcast that you should definitely like and subscribe and rate a 5-star review, and I'll send you an adorable bracelet if you do. It is our Reddit Am I the Asshole thread podcast, and it is very funny, if I do say so myself.
It is. It's a lot of fun. Also, guys, for my new upcoming disability and mental health podcast called Cyborg Disco. It's very personal story based. So if you want to come on my show and share any personal stories about, about disability, whether it's experiencing ableism or overcoming, overcoming your own internalized ableism, or mental health struggles. It can be, whether it can be inspiring or can be challenging or, any kind of story you want to share. Please get in touch with me. I would love to have you on the show. I'm particularly interested in speaking to people who have stories to share from an intersectional perspective.
Marginalized communities.
Yeah. Particularly if you're Black, if you're trans, or if you are formerly incarcerated. There are a lot of, that's something that I would really like to talk about, especially with so much focus lately being on, with so many people talking lately about Gypsy Rose Blanchard.
Yeah.
It's, that's something that's really been on my mind lately. And, people kind of not really handling their story very responsibly. So it's, get in touch with me. I would love to speak to you. And hopefully we can share some stories. And Pamela, did you have anything else that you wanted to say before we head on out?
Last but not least, Cyber Queen Media is also on TikTok. Please follow us on TikTok. And I have a comedy variety show. Our next show will be on Instagram live stream. You can follow us on Instagram at Goat Show LA. I'm going to update my header right now. So, thank you. You just pulled it up for me. That's swell. Yeah, at Goat Show LA, bottom of the screen. We will be doing our next show, Aliens in Love, not September, February 9th, 8 p.m. Pacific time. It will be on Instagram Live. I would love if you guys would watch it. I do lots of funny stuff. And we're also in person in Los Angeles. So for more details, if you happen to be in LA, go to that Instagram page.
Yes. Also, leave a comment. We did a Lottie deep dive already, but we actually plan to revisit it with this new format. But leave a comment on who you would like our next deep dive to be on. We would like to, obviously we plan to revisit Lottie, but we also plan to do updated deep dives on the characters that I already covered with my former co-hosts. And we also want to hit Jeff. And
Callie.
Yeah,
that
Callie.
Crazy little bitch.
Yes. We even want to talk about Crystal because she's fun. Like, a lot of people didn't like Crystal. We loved her. We loved Crystal, okay? I cried when she died. I took it as a personal attack.
Yes, I have lots of, and we'll be singing the whole episode. I'm just kidding, but I mean, it would be apt, right?
I'm not. I'm making it a musical episode. I'm singing. It's going to be a rock opera. It's going to be Antler Queen's The Rock Opera.
Iceberg rock opera.
Yes. I suppose we should probably do an episode on Ben. I'll probably be cringing the whole time. I might need to wear a mask over my face so you don't see my facial expressions. The whole Iceberg is going to be like, it's just going to say, I hate Ben. Ben sucks.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, anyway, leave us a comment.
We got a lot more good stuff coming.
Yes, lots more. Leave us a comment. Let us know who you would like our next deep dive to be on, or a particular storyline that you would like our next deep dive to be on. We talked about just doing a deep dive on the duality of all the characters. We talked about doing an episode on Sammy's drawings. So
Cannibalism, the symbol.
the Cannibal Council. Yeah.
Cannibal Council. Yes, thank you. Cabin Daddy.
Yep. Yeah, just let us know in the comments what you would like to see, and we will add it to our list of topics to talk about. So we're so glad to be back with these deep dives, and we will see you guys soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Peace, love, and Yellowjackets.